Hello everybody, welcome back to X-Plane 11. My name is Micah. Today we're going to be covering the FlightFactor Airbus A320. We're going to be going over the cold and dark startup, the MCDU, otherwise known as the FMS, etc., depending on if you're coming from Boeing or not. We're going to be doing a takeoff, taxiing takeoff through our whole leg all the way to Atlanta, to our approach and landing. Doing an ILS landing on the 27 right in Atlanta. I'll be covering some little things along the way that are important to keep note of. This will act as a simple and easy to understand walkthrough and tutorial on how to fly this aircraft. Understand I am not an actual pilot, so there's some aspects that may be incorrect or slightly off. Just forewarning you right off the bat, but I have been flying this aircraft for some time now in Flight Simulator. We're going to give it our best shot here, and hopefully this will help all of you out there who've been asking how to fly this aircraft, how to do certain aspects of the MCDU, and so forth. This is an updated version of the one I did previously about a year ago, and hopefully this will be an additional learning option for you out there. So, let's get inside the cockpit and get going. So as you can see, we are in a cold and dark state. That means all the lights are off, panels are off. Only things we're seeing is, for some reason, our EFBs are on. I'm guessing they have batteries themselves. In reality, I think those would actually be off as well. But that's how you interface with the model here, so they have to have them on. The battery lights are off, but the voltage meters are showing, and that's important. These will always be on. If they're not on, your batteries are completely dead. So, you'll first start off by making sure a couple things. The weather and PWS is now enabled here in the Airbus A320. It's been updated. The weather actually works. You can select it. You can turn it on and off. We want to make sure that the weather radar system is off, and the PWS is also off. Now, the PWS is not modeled right now, as you can see. You cannot click it, but the weather is, so make sure this is off the get-go. You don't want to fry people inside the terminal right out in front of you. Next, we'll make sure our engine mode selector, that's this switch right here, we want to make sure it's in the normal position. We don't want it in the far left position or the ignition start. We want it in the normal position. We also want to make sure our master selectors, our engine masters 1 and 2, are both in the off position. If they're in the on position, the moment you start up the aircraft, it's going to register as if it's trying to start the engines. We don't want that. Again, normal position, masters 1 and 2 be off. Thrust levels, we will keep that in idle. You can see that if it's, a lot of times you may come into an aircraft and maybe slightly up, depending on who left it there or whatever, or if, that's in real life, but in the simulator, maybe you forgot that after the last flight to bring your throttle all the way down or what have you. So make sure that's all the way down to idle. Landing gears down should be default like that, but you always want to double check just in case. Windshield wipers, you want those off in the beginning as well. Those are off. Now we're going to go up to the voltage here. We're going to check the voltage. We want to see 25.6 volts or greater in these voltage meters. If it's less than 25.6 volts, we need to do a charging procedure, which is not actually simulated here in the aircraft itself, so as far as I understand. So the batteries will always be good, as far as I know, unless you fault them, which I think the fault system's not in yet, but they are coming with that. Once that's done, we actually can turn our batteries on, so we'll turn BAT 1 on. You just click it and wait. You'll notice the BAT 2 off comes on. That's because now the panel's actually getting power. The lights are going to illuminate. Now, you'll know that A320 is a lights off cockpit. If the light's off, it means it's on. If the light is on, it means it's off. I know, right? So it kind of counterintuitive, but you want all the lights to be off, and that means it's functioning properly. So, battery 2 on now. Watching those voltage meters, make sure they stabilize. We don't want them to see them dropping below 25.6, like I said before. Now that we've gotten that, if we have GPU available, we would establish GPU, which we'll be doing today. This is external power, so this is if the place you're at actually has a generator that can come and hook up to your aircraft to provide power. Now, to turn that on the A320 here, you'll go to the EFB. You'll see where it says ground power unit, otherwise known as the GPU. See, that's where it's going to be right there. We turn it to on. You should hear it now in your speakers coming through as kind of this engine noise, and that is what we want to hear. Shock should also be on. Now, the air starter unit, sometimes people ask, what is that? So the air starter unit actually gives you pressure without turning on the APU. So it allows you to start the engines without an APU being live. But we're not going to use that today. We're going to use the APU because we want to do a push and start at the same time. Now that we've connected the GPU to the actual aircraft itself, we still have to make it actually push power through our bus system. So you'll see where it says external power. You'll notice that there's a AVL light, AVAL, say AVAIL. Okay, so it's a whole avail. Light right here is now on the electrical panel. That means it's available, but it's not actually pushing electricity through. So we have to click it, and you'll notice a bunch of lights came on, and that is normal. The AC turns on, pressurization, all systems are now functioning. What you want to do, though, is wait until these self-tests have finished. Once these self-tests have finished, then we can go ahead and continue with our startup procedure. Alright, displays have now all come on. We want to make sure they all did activate. We don't want to have any blackouts. Now that we've done that, we're actually going to go ahead and do a couple things here. If we didn't have a GPU available, we would do an APU start. To do an APU start, before you do that, you would have to do an APU fire test. So, we're going to go ahead and do APU and engine fire test. To do that, you'll see the fire panel right here. This is in case of a fire inside of these engine 1, engine 2, or your APU. To test them, all you do is hit this test button. You should see the fire light illuminate, the squelch and discharge agent lights illuminate. You should also be getting a master warning and a master caution, and you should also see APU fire down here on your display. Release, and it should go all the way. Same with the engine fire tests. You want to see master lights, you want to see that the engine 1 fires illuminating here, and you're getting that warning tone. And see it go away, and we'll do the other one as well. Again, making sure they're on, and it's all functioning properly. Now we'll turn our seatbelt signs on in preparation for people to actually keep seatbelts off, signs off. I meant smoking on. In preparation for people to come on board here. Emergency exit lights will go to arm. And we'll make sure our parking brake is set, which it should already automatically be set. But just in case, always want to double check, make sure it's set. We want to make sure our flaps are down, which if they're up, they're going to look like that. We want to make sure they're down in the 0 position. Yeah, I know. Telling you our flaps. It wants to recycle it there. Okay. Then you have your ground spoilers right here as well. You want to make sure those are retracted. We don't want them up like that. We want them down. So, alright. That's set. Two brakes are down. Probe and window heat. So probe and window heat is right here. We don't want this on. We want it on auto. Only time you'd ever turn the probe and window heat on is if you had a buildup of ice already on the windows. So if these windows were completely iced up, there was snow all over the place, all that kind of stuff, then you could actually go ahead and turn it to on. But in general, you want to keep it lights off, and that'd be automatic. That means it'll automatically turn on. I believe it's automatically turn on once you start taxing or something around there. I'm not 100% on that, but I do know it automatically calculates when it needs to turn on to make sure that your windows and probes stay ice free. Now we're going to go to our AIDER. So our AIDER is basically, if you're familiar with the Boeing side of things, it is the IRS system. So to turn these on, to align them, all we're going to do is select them to nav. So we'll start with IR1. Wait for it to go to align, and then we're going to wait for this ADERS to show on bat. That's important in case you lose external power, such as your, let's say, excuse me, you lose your APU, you lose your engine power. You want to make sure that your battery power is still pushing through your reference system here, so you know where you are in the world. We'll do it in IR2 as well. Wait for that on bats as well. There it is. And then we'll do IR3 as well. And the final on bat. Next, we're going to move on to our logo lights. Our nav and logo lights are going to go to 1 because I am the captain and I'm flying. And so there's 1 and 2. The difference is there's 2 sets of navigational logo lights. There's 1 and 2 outside on the wings. See if I can get an external view here, and I can show you what I'm talking about. If you look, you can actually see the second light right there. You see 1 is currently illuminated. If I switch to 2, this one will become illuminated. And what that's for is it's a backup. In case you lose a bulb or something like that, you can just flip over to the second one. You don't have to wait on anyone to come fix it or anything like that. It just automatically, you can just switch over to number 2. A lot of places will use different type of procedures for that. Like, say, if the first officer is flying, you would switch it to number 2. If the captain's flying, you switch it to number 1. It's up to you however you want to run with it, but 2 and 1 are both going to give you the same amount of lights, the same lights, just, you know, slightly offset. Alright, all the lights should be off at this time, which they are. Wing and engine anti-ice. So these are anti-ice engines and wing. They should be off, which they are. If they're on, they'll actually say on, so off. You want to make sure those are off. Cockpit forward and aft cabin temperatures right here. We're going to keep them right in the middle. No reason to get cold or hot right now. We'll leave them as they are. We're going to go ahead and set our cockpit lights, which we already have set. Our open integrated lights, which are these right here, as bright as they come. We could turn on a dome light if we needed to, say if it was night or something like that, but it's not, so we're going to keep it off. If we wanted to change, let's say the PFD brightness, we could change it right here to ND brightness. You know, crank that all the way up if we want. Got your console lights dim, off, bright, etc. if you want to mess with those. It's all up to you. You got your floods down here for your main panel, your main integrated lights, flood lights for PFD. It all depends on how you want to set up your lights. Completely up to you. I'll leave it as they are right now. Next, we're going to go ahead and check some systems here. So we are going to check our hydraulic fluids. So go to hydraulics. What we want to see is this little dot right here, this little square. We want to make sure that's in the green. If it was down here in the yellow, we would be low on hydraulic fluid and we would not be able to fly this aircraft. But we have green across the board on that, so we're good for hydraulic fluid quantity. Next, we want to check our oil quantity. Again, we want to make sure we're in the green. If this line was down here at the yellow or below, we would not be able to fly the aircraft. We are plenty of oil inside the aircraft right now, so we're good to go there. Next, we want to check our oxygen pressure, cockpit oxygen pressure. We should have, it should be in the green. If it shows yellow here, then you can't fly the aircraft. Again, basically, if it's yellow, you can't fly it. So I want to make sure that it is in the green here, which it is. Then, if we want to make sure if we have any errors, we hit the recall button. Notice it says flight controls error, slats fault, flights lever recycled. So we go full here. And let's try going back to 0. And we're still getting that error, so we'll wait until we start up the engines here. And if we still have that error once we start the engines, when the hydraulic pressure is being pushed through, then we'll take care of it then. But in general, that probably won't be too big of an issue, but we'll find that out in a moment here. Transponder should be in standby, your transponder down here. Let's go over that real fast because it's a little bit different than your Boeing. Let me look down a little bit here. All right, so The transponder in your Boeing has selectors like standby, off, standby on, standby, alt off, alt on, and then TARA. It's a little bit different here in the Airbus. Airbus, you still have your standby, TA, and TARA. You have this is your TCAS, so you want to go looking all, or just above, or just below your aircraft. Then you have your actual, this controls your whole transponder itself. It can be in standby, or it can be in the on mode. You leave it in auto pretty much all the time, and you'll be fine. This is your altitude reporting, so the alt off, alt on. This is how you select that. And then you have mode 1 and mode 2. Okay, depending on what you're doing and where you are, you'll have different modes depending on which one you're going to be using. We'll keep it on 1 for now. And we can say that our transponder today is 2500. Alright, we're going to go over here to our status button. I'm going to make sure that we are good. Interesting. That's new. That's new. Before, this wouldn't give us all this information. It would just give us a status saying normal. So that's different. That's cool to see. Most up-to-date version, so things are different now. Alright, so normally you would contact the ATC and get clearance for your departure to give you what you're going to be flying, your altimeter, your altitude, what frequencies you'll need to go to, etc., etc. We don't have ATC today, so we're not going to be grabbing that. But at this point, you'd be setting your radio systems, your transponder, your altitude, so what your initial altitude is. So let's say it was 10,000 feet, then you can set it for 10,000 feet would be your initial climb altitude. Yeah, and altimeter. So we actually, let me pull up the map here. If you guys ever want to pull a altimeter for your airport, you just zoom in, find your airport, go to details, scroll down, and you'll find your altimeter 3004. And we can set that as such. Now that's done, let's go ahead and go into the MCDU. So the MCDU is the FMS of the Airbus system. It's totally different than Boeing. So if you're used to Boeing, you're going to be lost in the sauce, okay? But hopefully this will help some going through this. So we're going to go to our data page first. We're going through what they call diff rips. So if I can actually put it over here if I want to, just so you can see it while we go. And diffs rip, okay, 2-piece diffs rip. And what this basically is helps you walk through your planning. So we go to data, right? Data index, AC status. This is what we're looking for. We want to make sure we're in the active. We want the active nav data, which we are 18 July through 15 August. We are in that position. We are good. Their secondary nav database is the same. That's fine. Everything's looking good and correct. Now we want to go to the I in diffs rip init page. This is your bread and butter. So we're going to be leaving Miami and we're going to be arriving in Atlanta. AMIA to KATL. Notice the slash in between. That's going to fit right here. 4/4/4. And we hit the R1 button. It's going to show this. This is just if you, for example, if you've flown this before, you saved a company route. This would actually, it would show you like routes you could pull from if you needed to. Obviously, this not being a company aircraft and being reset every time you load it, it's not going to be there. But anyway, that's what that page would be in real life. You have a company route. Again, if there was one there, your alternate. So we don't have an alternate put in, but our alternate today would actually be Birmingham, Alabama. So that'd be KBNA. And that'd be our alternate airport. Our flight number today, we are Delta Airlines, flight 56. Our cost index. So cost index in the Airbus is basically 0 to 99. 99 means we don't care what type of fuel burn you use. We want to get there as fast as we dadgum can. Cost index 0 is basically conserve every little drop of fuel you can. You're trying to balance between speed and efficiency. I generally use cost index 30. I don't have an issue with that. It seems to do just fine, and it works very well. And that's close to, I think American Airlines uses 21 on most of their flights. Delta uses like 30 something. Anyway, so depends on what the air carrier you're flying with that will change that cost index. Now that we put our cost index, we're going to select our cruising altitude. And today our cruising altitude is going to be 360. And it's going to show a temperature of negative 56 degrees. That's the average temperature that will appear at that flight level. But what we're actually going to do is go to our flight plan that I've gotten from SimBrief, and I'm going to check the first waypoint on my list. At the flight level I'm going to be at, which is 360, is actually negative 48, not negative 56. So we go slash negative 48, and we'll put that in there as our actual temperature. We'll go ahead and grab our wind request, and now we're going to go into the IRS init page, and we're going to select align on ref. This is your reference right here, KMIA. We're going to align it on the ref and confirm the alignment. Now we'll notice our IRS 1, 2, and 3 have all been aligned on the reference, and now we know where we are in the world. So now that we finished the DI portion of DISREP, we're going to go to our flight plan, which is the F portion. So if you're used to Boeing, this does not look even close to how Boeing has theirs done, but it does make sense. And I'll show you guys how we're going to go through this and how we're going to plan it. We are going to plan basically everything you can imagine. I specifically chose this route to help everyone understand how this will go. We're going to be using a SID, a transition from the SID. We're going to be direct to a waypoint, through an airway to another waypoint, then to another waypoint, then to a star, and a approach ILS into Atlanta. So we're using almost all the features of the MCDU here, the MCDU, as it's called. So you notice GPS primary just got active, so now we actually have GPS and everything. All these panels should be showing our actual position and everything. So we're going to start by selecting our departure waypoint, our departure airport, KMIA, using the L1 button. You'll notice that a couple things pop up. You'll have fix info. This basically allows you to put fixes on the reference. We're not going to do that. You have your departure selector, which we're going to choose in a second. You'll also notice that the lat and long is right here. So if you ever need to verify your waypoint is the right waypoint, you can look at that right there. So we're going to select departure here. We are going to select the runway we're departing on. Today we're departing off of runway 12, so we're going to select 12. Our SID today is the Headley 2 SID, and we should be transitioning through Headley. We're going to go over, looks like it's not actually going to have the transition here, but I believe Headley 2 has Headley built in. So if we go to our flight plan here, this is our temporary flight plan, and we scroll down, notice Headley 2, yeah, it does have Headley built in. No big deal from there. So now that we've done that, that looks good. We're going to temporary insert. So we're going to insert our temporary into our actual flight plan. Now this is our active portion of our flight plan. But now we got to start putting in our waypoints and our airways. All right, so to insert our next waypoint, all we're going to do is type it into our keyboard here and insert it where this flight plan discontinuity is. So we're heading from Headley direct to STIMI, which is STYMY. Now you'll notice that it goes back to that temporary flight plan, which is what we want. But there's something about this waypoint that's going to be a little bit different. See, this waypoint actually is the beginning of our airways. So to actually input an airway, we go into this waypoint, and you'll see where it says airways. We're going to select that. And we're going to select via, which is the Quebec 77, which is our airway today, to the end of that. We're going to exit that airway at Sharks, SHRKS, and put that in the 2. If we had a further airways, we could continue to put those in the via and 2, all the way down. Go back to our temporary flight plan, and you'll notice that it is now inserted that airways into the flight plan. You'll notice it says Quebec 77. That's along that airway right there. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and do another temporary insert. Get that sucked in there so it's not gonna screw up or anything like that. Once we've done that, we're actually going to put in our next waypoint, which is just a direct to waypoint of Larry, Lairi. Input that, temporary insert. And now we're going to put in our star. To put in your star, all we're going to do is select our destination, select our arrival, and we're going to choose our ILS. We're using ILS 27 right. Right here, ILS 27 right. We're going to select that. And then we're going to select our star, which is the Jedi 2. We're not going to be using any of our approach vias. We're going to use just the star Jedi 2. And I believe, yep. Transition is showing none, but we want a transition, but we're not seeing a transition here. We're going to use these selectors right here, left and right, to find the transitions. So you notice we are on this approach. Now we're going to go to our right here. You'll notice it says transition, Ewok, Hoth, and Lars. We're using the Lars transition. Go back to our temporary flight plan. We'll notice we have a discontinuity here. We can go ahead and get rid of that. Selecting the clear button, clear the discontinuity. We're going to continue down, make sure everything's looking good. We do have a discontinuity and a manual. Whenever there's a manual, there's always going to be a flight plan discontinuity. It's basically a manual break in your flight plan where generally the pilot would be receiving air traffic control directions on how to actually arrive into the airport. We don't want that today, so we're actually going to clear the manual and clear the flight plan discontinuity. Once we've done that, we're going to go into temporary insert, and we should have our entire flight plan land out. Fantastic. So next we're going to continue on through our diff strip, and we're going to start with our secondary flight plan. To do that, we're actually going to bring up our second MCDU here. Make it a little bit larger. Go to our second flight plan. We're going to go to our init in our second flight plan. And we're going to select, clear all that out, Miami to Miami. Now you're thinking, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Let me explain why we're doing this. Once we put that into our, we're going to go back to our secondary flight plan. Go to the secondary flight plan, select Miami, and return to the destination Miami, not the departure Miami. And we're going to select arrival. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this in case we have a problem with our aircraft, if we lose an engine with a bird strike on the way out, or what have you. We don't have to worry about trying to program anything into the MCDU. It's already programmed. We just activate the secondary flight plan. We go secondary flight plan, copy to active, boom, you're operational with your secondary flight plan. This is an emergency situation. This helps eliminate things you have to do while you're actually trying to deal with the emergency. Cuts down a lot of workflow. It helps in the long run. So you can go ahead and do this, have this all set up nice and ready. What we're going to do is we're actually going to select the longest runway. Now if you look here, you'll see the runway links. We are going to select ILS 09 because that is going to be the longest runway. We're not going to put a star or anything. We're just going to select ILS 09 as our arrival. Go back to our secondary flight plan. Now we're going to our perf page. We're not going to put any takeoff information. Not going to put any climb information or cruise or descent. We are only going to put into our perf page on our secondary flight plan our current information for the airport. So like our QNH, which is 30.04. Temperature right now is 32 degrees Celsius. Winds, I don't know that the winds are. Let's find out what the winds are here today. Go into Avi tab and we'll check it out. Our meter today is 120 at 5. So 120 at 5. And then we're going to select our decision height or MDA. Basically, I guarantee you that decision height is going to be 200 feet above field level. Now, of course, you can always check the approach plates. But if I go in here to our approach, ILS 9, go down here. Our DA is 207 and our actual DH is 200. So, like I said, our DH is 200, so 200, you're ready to rock and roll. And of course, we're going to use landing config full as well. Now that we finished that last S in the diffs rip, we are going to go to our radio and navigation. So this is where we can hard tune our radio and navigational frequencies as we need to. I'm going to leave them all in auto. It looks fine. I'm not worrying about putting any VORs or anything in there as of right now, so we should be fine as is. But if you had VORs or ILSs you're going to be using, you could go ahead and put them in here, or even the ADF if you wanted to use that as well. Put all that information here into the radio navigation for your access. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to go back to our init page on that, and we'll keep our flight plan open over here. Next, we need to actually go over to the EFB and get some stuff done for the aircraft itself. We're going to call a fuel truck, call our PAX truck, and our cargo truck, or baggage loaders for both forward and rear here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our fuel according to our fuel plan, which is, we have 7.4 kilograms of fuel. 7.4. Set that. Packs today, we are flying with 120 packs. Go up to 120. Set that. And cargo. Now, according to SimBrief, my zero fuel weight should be 59.3. If we check our perf data, right now it's 52.3. We need 59.3, which means we need an extra 7 tons of cargo. So we go to our cargo weight here, and we bring this up about 7. Let's see how that gets us. Well, 58.3, and we want 59.3, so we need to add another ton here. 59.357. We needed 59.3. That is close enough. We're good there. We can continue on now. It's important to set this at this point in time, because when we go down here to our init page and go to our second init page, we're going to pull our zero fuel weight and zero fuel weight center of gravity. When we pull that, we need to make sure it's already set, because if we don't, then it's going to cause some major issues. To do a weight request, it'll give us all of this information automatically. Now we'll go to our first P and diffs rip, and that is going to be our progress page. Now what we're going to put in here is actually our departure runway, and the reason why we're doing that, RW12, actually we need to put KMIA first, is to give us a dead reckon. I think actually just KMIA 17. Yeah. This gives us a bare bones direction and distance from the airport, which helps with contacting ATC and stuff like that. It just helps, if you need to know, hey, I can't see the airport. Where is it? Is it behind me? Check, your distance and direction, and boom, it's right there. All right. So that is your first P and diffs rip. You also want to make sure your GPS is primary and your accuracy is high. Next, we're going to go to our performance. Now, our performance, we could pull VR, we could pull V2, and we could calculate V1 if we wanted to. But I'm going to show you guys a neat little online program for you that will help for planning this particular portion of the takeoff. I found it to be very useful. It's quite accurate for the actual reality. So I'm going to show you that today. So let me bring that up. All right, everybody. So this is the WAB Pro takeoff calculator for the A320, A319, or A321. We're using the A320 today. Our engine in the CFM. We're using the metric system, and we're going to type in our ICAO for origin airport, which is Miami. We can pull the meter automatically, pulling all the information we need, 32, which matches what's inside of the current simulator, as well as the QNH, 10.7 HPA, that is correct. Wind direction, 110 at 6 knots. Elevation, everything is all right here. What is going to be our flaps for takeoff? 1 plus F. Tax will be on. Anti-ice will be off. Runway will be dry. Now we're going to put in our actual tow and our MAC. So inside of the simulator itself, inside of the perf data page, you can pull that information for you. So for example, we're going to be our tow today will be 66.8. Our MAC, which is basically your center of gravity, 28.3. Our runway is 12. It's going to give us all the information we need here, flex, etc., etc. All we got to do is click calculate, and voila, it gives us all the information we need. Our flex temperature, our takeoff speeds, V1, V2, VR, our yeah, everything's right here for you. So pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool program. It works really well. So there you go, guys. That is what I was talking about, the takeoff calculator. So let's get back into the aircraft and let's show you how to input that information into the MCDU. All right, we're back here in the simulator at the MCDU. So as you saw, I was able to pull the VR and V3 calculated here through the MCDU, but you'll notice that there was a difference in the actual calculations through the website versus the calculations through the MCDU itself. I'm not sure how they calculate the stuff in the MCDU, but I found the calculations on the website to be more accurate. So we're going to put those in instead. So our V1 is 149. Our V2 is also our VR is also 149, and our V2 is 150. Transition altitude is 18,000. Our flaps will be 1. Our flex temperature is 57 degrees Celsius. Voila! Now you've inputted actual information into the performance page of your aircraft. I found that to be extremely useful. Hopefully you guys found it useful as well. Know that kind of exists. And that that program online, they do accept donations, so if you want to help them out, you can always send them donations if you want, if you like what they do. Now that we've set all of that, we're going to continue on with our checklist here, with our pre-flight checklist. Basically, you do a maintenance check, make sure everything's been taken care of. If there's a maintenance list, but obviously we don't have to worry about that right now because the aircraft is fully operational. Cabin signs can come on, so seatbelt signs on, no smoking's on, fuel pumps can come on. APU master switch is going to come on, which is right down here. You'll notice it says on. But what we're going to do here, make sure our aiders are on nav. We're going to check our fuel on board versus what we need. Right now we have 7,400 kilograms of fuel on board. We needed 7,400, so actually just below 7,400. So we have enough fuel on board. We can go over here to our services. We can go ahead and remove our fuel truck. Baggage loaders can go away. And we can go and remove the stairs as well. Docks can go away. We're going to go down here to our status page. We're going to check out our APU. We want to make sure the flap open is showing. Once we know it's showing, we can actually start the APU. So flap open is on, so we can go APU start. So we hit the start button on the APU. Going to go on. You'll notice that the EGT for the APU is rising. N is rising for the APU. We're waiting for the APU gen right here to go to 100% and then say available. Alright, APU says available. We got 0% used, but voltage is 115, 400 hertz. We are good to go on the APU. So we can actually go ahead now and we can turn off the external power, go to our EFB, disconnect it. Make sure all of our ground items have been removed, which they have all been removed now. Go down to our panel here, and we are going to actually check out our doors and slides. We want to make sure all these are green. You can see slides, slides, slides. You want to make sure all of these are green. None of them need to be yellow. Once that's done, we can go and turn on our beacon. So beacon comes to on. Again, we're going to check, make sure our thrust level is idle. We haven't, budged it, mushed it, or moved it in any way, shape, or form while we've been messing around in the cockpit here. Let's see, parking brake is still on. Transponder should be on auto, which it is. TCAS should be on the above, so we go to above. Now we can request pushback and start. Let's go ahead and get that going.
Connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Alright, so we can release the parking brake and get this thing started here.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Alright, pushback has started, so we can go to APU bleed comes on. We'll go down here to our ignition. We can go to ignition mode to ignition and start. And we'll start master 1. Now when we do that, we want to hit the chrono button. So we're counting the actual time here on the engine start. Let's say we have a fault or something like that. We want to make sure that we actually, know what time from the point we flip that ignition switch when that fault occurred. And that can help with maintenance. So we want to have that running here as the engines start up. We got a positive start on engine number 1. Everything looks good on engine number 1. We can kill that chrono, reset it. Now we can go down to master number 2. Goes to on, chrono on. Watches in 2 rises, in 1 rises, and the EGT as well.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Set the parking brake for them.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Engine number 2 is positive. We have available. So we've got a good start on engine 1 and a good start on engine 2. Now we're going to start the chrono one more time. We want to make sure we get a total warm-up time of at least 5 minutes for both engines since we're coming from cold and dark startup. We can change our ignition mode, so we can disconnect him. Ignition mode to normal. Ground spoilers, you can arm those. Flaps are going to go to 1 plus 1 or something like that. 1 plus F, so slats are going down 1 and flaps are coming down 1 as well. that is set for takeoff now. Trim set for takeoff. So according to our perf data, our trim should be up 0. So we should be at the 0 position, which I believe we currently are. Yep, we are currently at 0. So we're good on the trim. Radios, change that to intercom mode. Generally you want to do that actually before you finish doing the pushback, so that they don't hear you talking to people down on the ground. Anyway, if you bleed, that can come off now since both engines are started. MPU master switch can come off as well. Pushback has been completed. The pin has been removed. We would normally at this point contact ATC for clearance for taxi. There is no ATC today here in Miami, so we're going to be taxiing ourselves. We are taxiing here to the left. We'll be taxiing over to runway 12. Pull up my tablet here so we can see where we are in the airport. We are going to be taking, basically, we'll be turning to the left here, taking Yankee 2 or Yankee 1 over to Yankee all the way down till 12. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and do a, taxi light needs to come on first. Taxi light's on. Move the parking brake. And we'll do a brake check once we are clear of the ramp here. While we're taxiing, we can go ahead and start doing a departure brief. Basically, we'll be taking off runway 12. We're climbing to initial altitude of 10,000 feet. Or actually, I guess, initial altitude of 5,000 feet. After we have climbing, heading 124 to 520 feet, then we'll turn left, heading direct to Sonoy, then via depicted route to Headley. And if we look here, what we'll be doing is taking off like this to Sonoy, and then we'll be following that out. That looks good. I like it. We'll be flying, of course, we'll be taking off with /1 flaps. We have a flex temperature already set. QNH is 30.04. Captain will be taking, if we have any engine problems on takeoff, we'll abort unless we're over decision speed, at which point we'll make a turn back around, and we'll come back around and land at runway 09. Go ahead and let them have them check the cabin status, make sure we're ready for the cabin. Everybody is seated with their seatbelts securely fastened. Auto brakes going to max. And go already do a takeoff config check. Should come across green. Normal on that. We've already passed our 5-minute warm-up time, but we'll let the chrono run until we get to the actual runway here. We're going to switch over to our controls, our flight controls page, and we're going to do a systems check here for our flight controls. So we go full left, full right, full down, full up. Now to check the rudder, we have to actually press this button right here. Full left, full right. Release that button. If we don't use that button, you actually would turn the aircraft as well. You want to use that to disconnect the tiller from the rudders. So our briefing is complete. So we've done all that. Next, we'll go to our before takeoff checklist. We'll do a gross weight comparison. If we check out our perf data, gross weight is 66.7. On our flight plan, our gross weight is 66.4. That's close enough. It's only about 300 pounds difference. Nothing to really worry about there. That's within tolerance. Our pitch trim is at 0. Make sure that's set at 0. Our V-speeds have been set. As we see, we're getting that indicators right here on the PFD. Our flex temperature is set to 57 degrees Celsius. Flex will be at 57 degrees Celsius, 90.4% total thrust. Flaps have been set for takeoff. Verify it's down here as well. Flight controls have been checked. Flight instruments all are working properly. We got one FD2. ECAM status. We have normal. WS would be on auto, but we can't select that. It's not operational at this point. As we get closer, we can go and turn on our system to 1. Going to give us our weather. Rain on Indy as well. Advise the crew, let them know, hey, we're about to be taking off here. Fuel on board is 72.60. Minimum takeoff fuel is 71.35. So we are good to go on our takeoff for fuel. Engine mode selector is on normal. Bleed and packs are set lights off. Again, lights off means that they're running words. They're properly functioning properly. They're functioning properly. If those are on, for example, then we'd have a problem with our bleeds, which would be a problem with our pressurization system, which would be a big issue once we're climbing. Our TCAS system can go to TARA. And once we get to the hold here, we'll do a couple other things as well. Alright, so guys, we got clearance from tower for departure. Landing lights are going to come on all the way on. Our taxi lights can come off. Well, they go to TA, take off as well. Our strobe lights go on. Runway turnoffs, wings, everything basically gets turned on. We're a big light bulb now. Verify we've had 5 minutes of warm up. We've had 10. We're good. Clear that out. Start our next chrono. And we'll start our takeoff here set in a second. During our takeoff.
Approaching 1, 2.
I appreciate that call out. Didn't really need it, but thanks anyway. As we approach our runway here, when we take off, we're going to make sure our engines go to 50% N1 before we activate our auto throttle. Auto throttle on the Airbus is a little bit different than you would say on the Boeing. It actually uses the throttle quadrant, and you'll see that in a second.
On runway 1, 2.
So we're going to go 50%. You guys will hear clicks. When you hear those clicks, the indent is actually functioning. So we're at 50% of our N1. So now we're going to push forward. You're going to hear a click. And then you're going to hear another click. That second click, you'll see where it says man flex 57%. So now we are in a flex takeoff. We got positive rate, a positive thrust. Thrust is set. Wait for those V's. And slowly bringing our aircraft off the ground. We got positive rate. Here's coming up. Following those directors. Start making our turn now for our SID. You'll notice we're going to get a notification here saying we need to change to level climb. It says level climb. To bring it down, ident to level climb. Notice I'm putting the nose down to make sure I maintain a positive rate of speed. We're waiting for this to climb to S. Once we hit S, then we can bring our flaps up. We're at S. Flaps can come up. Ground spoilers can be disarmed. We'll go ahead and turn on Autopilot 1, and now the aircraft is flying itself. As we're climbing, let me go ahead and say we turned over to the approach, departure. Departure said go ahead and climb, maintain an altitude of, let's see, we're flying to the north, so maintain an altitude of, I don't know, let's say 21,000 feet. Alright, as we're climbing, I want to show you guys what I'm talking about with the whole throttle quadrant thing I'm talking about here. See if I can get a better view. Well, that actually may be the best down here. So you'll notice you'll have reversers, 0, auto throttle, which this is manual. Then you have CL. CL is your climb. So when you hit that, it actually clicks in, and that is your climb level. So that is the speed at which the aircraft's going to do a certain type of climb, managed speed. Then you have a flex or MCT. This is what I just used for our takeoff, flex. And then we have toga. So sometimes it may ask you to use toga for takeoff, and you push it all the way forward and it goes into toga. Those are your 3 main auto throttle functions. Everything basically is going to be functioning off of climb except for when you're taking off and when you're landing. So pretty much once you set it into climb, you're good to go. The aircraft's going to fly itself. Don't have to worry about managing that speed anymore. Alright, so we're at 10,000 feet. This is our next little thing here. Turn off our landing lights, runway turn-off lights, wing lights. All those go off. Nose lights go off as well. Seat belts can go to auto. We're going to go to our cabin. We're going to make sure that our cabin vertical speed is increasing, and make sure that our cabin altitude is also increasing here. Right now it's at 2250. We want to make sure it does at least climb some. 2300, good. So it is pressurizing as we're climbing. That's what we want to see. Oxygen levels should still be in the green. Everything's looking great. Fantastic. Our next little waypoint will be at 18,000 feet. So once we get up to 18,000 feet, I'll see you guys there, and we'll talk about what we're going to do from there. Okay, as we're approaching 18,000 feet here, we're going to say we've already contacted center. They've already given us clearance to climb to our cruising altitude of 36,000 feet. A couple things we want to do here. We can go ahead and turn off our terrain radar. Turn that off. There's no reason to have it on anymore. We're way over any type of obstacles that may interfere with us. Next, we're going to be switching over our altimeter and our standby altimeter as well to our standard pressurization, which is 29.92. To do that, all you got to do is pull this, and this you pull, but you got to push up. Switch back, you do the opposite, and you'll see that later. But once you got this set to standard, basically you're done with messing with the aircraft until you get up to your cruise. So once we get up to our cruise, I'll see you guys up there at 36,000 feet, and we'll talk about what we do up at cruise. Alright guys, we're approaching our cruising altitude of 36,000 feet. I'm going to cover a couple things here. First off, let's cover on the display here. You'll notice that the top of our climb is indicated by this little arrow right here. There's lots of different symbols inside of this display, this system, which I'll probably put up a little image here showing you what those look like. But a bunch of different ones showing different things and mean different things. That one right there means top of climb. So as we reach our cruising altitude, our top of climb here, 36,000 feet, a couple things are going to happen. Seatbelt signs are going to go all the way off here, and as long as everything's smooth, which it is today. TCAS, we're going to change this from being above to all. That way we are seeing aircraft above us and below us in the same plane, everything. They're seeing it all over. That's what we want as we're cruising. Next, what you're going to do is notice that these are changing. Just so you guys know, normally in the aircraft you actually call those out, say Mach cruise, Mach altitude cruise, nav, etc. as they change. Anyway, that's when you have first officer and stuff, but we don't have that. So we're going to check our aircraft systems. So to do that, all we got to do is select this all button, and you keep selecting all, and you're just going to cycle through everything. We're just making sure that everything's in the green, nothing's yellow, nothing's red, there's no errors, all the levels look good, there's no problems in any of the systems. Fuel, APU's off, so don't worry about that. Air conditioning's fine, everything is functioning properly. Once we've done that, we're going to check a status, make sure everything's good there. Do a recall, see if there's anything we missed. Nope. All right, so basically we are good to go with our systems. Now, generally, you'll check your systems about every 20 to 30 minutes or so during your cruise. And yeah, so next part of our flight here will be our pre-arrival checklist. This is basically just going in and putting some information into our MCDU and looking at our arrivals and approach so that we are briefed on that. But that will be as we get closer to our top of descent, which will be quite a ways here. As we can see, it's a good ways away. So yeah, we have a while before our top of descent. So I will check back with you guys as we get closer and to the point where we need to be doing our pre-arrival checklist and briefing. Alright everybody, we're back here in the FlightFactor A320. We're approaching our top descent here in about 70 miles or so. Let's go ahead and start our pre-arrival checklist and brief. Go ahead and bring up our charts here. So we're going to be using the Jedi to arrival here into Atlanta. We're going to be transitioning through Lars at 2400, Distro at 14, Wookiee at 11, and Jedi at 10 with these speed constraints. Now let's talk about inside our MCDU and look at our flight plan. Now we notice that the flight level is not the same here at Lars, and that is going to cause a problem with our descent path. Now if you went and decided, you know what, okay, let's make it 240, so we're going to put /240, right? Put it in there, no problem. Works great. Temporary insert. What? Select heading and track first. What does that mean? So whenever you're making changes to the constraints, you actually have to get it off nav so it can recalculate. So get it off nav, all we got to do is change our heading. Let's make sure our heading is what we're heading right now, 335. That works fine, and we just need to make that the active heading. Now that we're on heading mode, you go down here. I know it sounds silly, guys, but it is what it is. Then we select temporary insert, and voila, it fixes the constraints. While we're on this heading mode, we're going to go ahead and make sure that all the other constraints are correct. 2800 at 14, that's correct. 25 at 11, that is correct. 25 at why is it 1060? It should be 10. Descending. There we go. Jedi at 10. Oh, because of the speed limitation. Okay. And Daffy at 8. That is selected. And so forth and so on. So it looks great. That looks like it's going to work perfectly fine. Awesome. So, little thing there, you guys may or may not know, you got to select the heading thing off. So we're going to go ahead and put it back on nav here. Notice our top of descent is now closer. What we're going to go ahead and do now, we're going to go over to our ILS chart here. Now, in reality, center would go ahead and have you descend either via the star or descend to a certain altitude and so forth, depending on what they want you to do. We're going to go as if they want us to descend via the star, which is what I believe most of you out there are going to be doing. So our intercept point on our glide slope is at 2,700 feet. So we go ahead and select our altitude. We can bring it down to 2,700. Have that set and ready to go. That's important for when we decide to do our descent here. Now that we've gotten that set up, let's go ahead and go into the MCDU again. And it's going to say enter destination data. No problem. Go to our performance, go to our next phase, and we're going to find our information right here. Now if we bring up our map again, see if we have ATL on our charts yet. Don't believe we do yet. Since we don't have ATL on our charts yet, we're just going to pull it up in our Avi tab. And here is our meter. Our altimeter is 30.13. Set that in QNH. Temperature is 29 degrees Celsius. Winds are 210 at 4. 210 at 4. Perfect. Now we're going to get our MDA. So to get our MDA, we're going to go over to our ILS chart, scroll down, look for ILS, and this is going to be our MDA 1185. This is using barometric pressure. This is using our radar basically. That would be under decision height. You can put 200 right here. That would work. Or we're going to use our barometric pressure of 1185 into MDA. Set that, and we've gotten all this information set up. Pay attention to our flap speed, our slat speed, and our clean speed. That's going to be important as we approach here. So now that we've gotten that completed, we can go and get rid of that tab. We don't need that anymore. We do want to make sure that our extra fuel is still good. So we currently have 4,300 pounds of fuel. Our extra fuel is that's going to be 3,000. So we got plenty of extra fuel. Looks like we're going to be fine if we have to divert. No problems on that. Verify our radio and information is set. Radio and navigation. So again, if we pull up our charts right here, we're going to notice that our ILS frequency 111.3, identified as Ida Alpha Foxtrot Alpha, is set here at ILS frequency. If it wasn't, if it was something else, you can hard tune it. Just type in the identifier, then slash, and then whatever the frequency. So that is set. Our radio navigation is set appropriately. Our progress, we want to make sure that our progress is set to the place we're going to be landing out, Atlanta, at 27 right, giving our distance and bearing. Our secondary flight plan, we're going to delete our secondary flight plan. We're going to copy the active. That way we have that set up as we need. If we wanted to set up an alternate approach, we could do so. We're not going to do that just yet, though. All right, now that we're approaching our descent, we're going to go ahead and set auto brakes to medium. We're going to go ahead and set LS on, both of these. Now you'll notice this top of descent is approaching. In a Boeing, it would automatically descent for you. In an Airbus, however, you have to make it descend. To do that, all you got to do is press this button in. I usually do it about 5 nautical miles away. It's up to you however far away you want to do it, just to give a more gradual slope here. You'll notice that it's showing DES, descent. It's doing a managed descent into the area, which means it's managing speed and altitude. If you wanted to do an open descent, which means it is going to drop you as fast as it can with idle thrust to bring you into the altitude you have set of 2,700, you just pull it instead of pushing it. Once you do that, it's going to change to op descent. You'll notice it goes thrust idle, and it starts pitching down a little bit more. But we want to use just descent mode. You'll notice this little squiggly line here. That is our intercept course onto the actual descent path programmed into the MCDU. Now that we're on our descent, a couple things we want to do. We're going to go to our TCAS and select below, because that's pretty much all we care about at this point. Our seatbelt signs are going to come on. And we're going to descend, and we're going to continue to descend. Of course, if ATC was here, they'd be instructing us, if they want us to descend a certain altitude or so forth. But since we don't have ATC, we're going to be descending via the star. We're going to be following our program here. So I'll see you guys farther on down the descent as we get closer to 18,000 feet, which is where a couple things are going to change and some information I need to relay to you. So I'll see you guys down there at 18,000 feet. Alright guys, we're getting close. We're past 20,000 feet, getting close to 18,000 feet here. As we get closer, I want to note a couple things here with the Airbus A320 on your descent. So, the Airbus is known for being a fast aircraft, which means it goes through the air quite quickly. It cuts through it very well. It's very aerodynamic and efficient. What that means is that you have to be very careful with your speed. It'll rather quickly, no pun intended, get away from you if you're not careful. Don't be afraid to use your speed brakes on your descent, approach, whatever you need. Speed brakes are known to be used a lot on the Airbus, so don't be afraid to use them. And you'll see me use them as we continue our approach here into Atlanta. quite a lot. Now, as we're approaching our 18,000 feet here, note that our altimeter here in Atlanta, according to Avitab, is 3013. So we switch back from standard to our altimeter here. Same on this as well, 3013. Past 18,000 feet. We're going to put terrain back on ND to avoid any type of hills or mountains as we approach. And we're going to continue to descend here till 10,000 feet. Now, once we get to 10,000 feet, a couple things are going to happen rather quickly. So I want to go ahead and explain what I'm going to do here. I'm going to be activating my approach, but before I activate my approach, I'm going to manually select my speed to maintain a high rate of speed. That's because if I went ahead and just selected approach, activated my approach here, this speed would be the next speed it would go for. It would try to reduce speed to 215 knots, which doesn't make any sense, especially when you have speed restrictions of like 250 and so forth that would inhibit that from being the case. They want you to fly max speed basically under 10,000 feet, which is 250 knots. That's just to speed up the arrivals, especially at a really busy airport like Atlanta. So I'm going to manually select speed, which means this dot's going to go away and there's going to be some numbers here. And I'm going to use that speed to actually slowly, in intervals, slow me down on my approach as I get closer. And then, once I get onto my final approach and I've captured the ILS and everything like that, I'm going to switch back over to manage speed to let the aircraft manage the speed for me as I'm dropping my flaps down. And that's all about controlling the speed, guys. I'm telling you, the Airbus, if you can learn to control the speed, you're going to be fine. So, I'm actually going to go ahead and start using some speed brakes here to start bringing my speed down from what it's set right now to close to the bottom bar here. As long as you're within these two bars, it's not going to worry about trying to manage your speed, like accelerate or decelerate you. I'm going to start bringing down my speed here because I know there's going to be a speed restriction coming up here soon that is going to be, I think it's 280 knots if I'm not mistaken. So just bringing my speed down slowly using speed brakes to about what I need. Releasing that speed brakes. See? Now I'm within that speed tolerance already. And that's what I was looking for. I want to go ahead and get that speed, you know, thinking ahead, planning ahead. I want to be slowing down before I even get there so that when I do get to that speed restriction, I'm already there, already at the speed I need to be at. Now we're passing Distra at 14,000 feet. We'll be passing Wookiee, I believe, at, I want to say 13,000 feet, but I can bring up the chart here. 11,000 feet at 250 knots. So even a more reduction of speed as we're coming into Atlanta. So again, as I get closer to this deceleration point, which is that pink circle right there, or pink dot, I'm going to use just a little bit of speed brake here to start slowing me down to the bottom of that speed zone. All in preparation to be inside of that speed restriction already right off the bat. I'm always trying to maintain the slowest speed I can. That's going to help me a lot on my final approach. Not going to have to worry about trying to slow down and descend at the same time. Airbus is notorious for being able to either A, descend, or B, slow down. You can't do both at the same time. Now, that's not necessarily true. I mean, you can slow down and drop at the same time, as you guys have seen putting some speed brakes out. But if you're descending at like 2,500 feet per minute or something like that, there's no way you're slowing down. With speed brakes all the way out, you're still going to be flying at the speed, if not increasing. So, again, just Adding a little bit of speed brake here and there, just bringing me down to the end of that little, within that, what do you call it? Gosh, words. Can't think of the words. Constraints, within the speed constraints on my PFD here. Little bit of speed brakes, bringing me down here, approaching that restriction here. Boom, hit the restriction, continuing down. Now within that speed restriction zone. That's simple, guys. Now, one thing I do want to show you guys on the PFD, see that little equal sign? That is the point at which you can actually drop flaps if you want to. Now, I'm not going to because I'm way far away at this point. But you could drop flaps at that point. Now, according to MCDU, they want you to drop flaps at this point, at this green circle, which is slats, sorry, when the slats. And that is actually when I will drop slats. And that will be at that green circle. And that will be at 210 knots. But again, as we're approaching 10,000 feet, I want to go ahead and select the speed I want to fly at. So let's say I want to fly at 250 knots. I'm going to go to manage speed. It'll go to speed right here, which means it's on a manual speed. Go down here. Activate the phase, the approach phase, and confirm activation of approach phase. If I don't do that again, it's going to want to reduce all the way to 215, and I don't want that. Landing lights can come on now. Oops, I don't know why it's doing that. Landing lights coming on. Runway turnoffs come on. Wing lights come on. I'm going to leave the nose light off. Once we get approved for our approach, we'll switch to taxi, and once we get approved to land, we'll switch to take off. Everything's looking good here on our approach into Atlanta. Again, just watching that speed. Managing as we need to. Now we are on a slow descent right here. I'm actually going to go ahead and start slowing the aircraft down even more. Now, depending on if ATC is here or not, they may or may not allow you to do this. They may say, hey, maintain normal speed or resume normal speed, which should be 250 knots. But again, if you don't have ATC, use full advantage of it and try to go ahead and start bringing in some of that speed before you even get to your approach phase. It's going to help you on your actual approach and make sure you don't miss any of those constraints out there. You'll notice my next top of descent point will be right here. It's showing right there, and then we'll descend again on our final approach. We'll maintain the speed until we get past Puba. We do want to verify that our cabin vertical speed is descending. Our cabin altitude is currently 2,000 feet. That way, when people step off the aircraft, they're not blowing their eardrums out. You want to make sure pressurization has equalized. Do notice that on our PFD, we have established, it has pulled the ILS 28 nautical miles away. Frequency is 111.30, and identified as Ida Alpha Foxtrot Alpha, which is indeed what we want for our ILS approach. pushing through some clouds here. Don't have to worry about it. Our outside temperature is, our static air is 15 degrees Celsius, so plenty warm enough. Don't have to worry about icing. One thing we want to be at is at the final approach fix of Mercer. We want to be at 180 knots at flaps 2. So what I'm going to do here in a second, right when I hit Puba, I'm going to start decreasing my speed again to about 210 knots. And I'll start dropping my slats and speed at the same time until I get flaps 2 and 180 knots by Mercer. Again, don't be afraid to use those speed brakes, guys. Do 10. And we'll go slats. Bringing it down to 190. Speed brakes are out. And bring it down to flaps. Slats and flaps down to 2. Bring this down to 180. Now we're at 180 knots. Slats and flaps are at 2. And we're approaching our waypoint here for our approach fix. Go ahead and activate our approach. It's going to go all into the descent, glide slope, and lock are all in the armed mode. And we captured the localizer. We're starting to make our turn on the localizer. And we're waiting for that glide slope capture. We're going to go manage speed now. Speed brakes again. Don't be afraid to use them. We have captured the glide slope. Go ahead and activate the taxi lights on that approach. Glide slope has been captured. Flaps going to 3. Our go-around altitude today is 4,000 feet. You can go ahead and set that.
2,500.
Bring our speed brakes back in. Going flaps full here. Arming our ground spoilers. Say we get clearance for landing, so we'll go TA. A little quick check here. Let's see, 7.5 out, so landing gear comes down. Alright, make sure the cabin is ready. Cabin's ready, landing gear's down, signs are on. Cabin is ready, spoilers are armed. Flaps are full, gear is down. We're ready for landing here in Atlanta. Everything's looking good. We're on the glide slope. Speed's at 140. At 1,000 feet, I'll take over manual control.
1,000.
Captain has the aircraft.
Approaching 27 right.
$500. $400. $100 above. $300. $200. Minimum.
Continue.
$100. 50, 40, 30,
Killing. Engines.
20, retard, 10, 5.
And just bring her on down. Buttery landing. Reversers full on out. Killing reversers. Killing auto brakes. Yeah, I know. Brakes are hot. That's not abnormal here. Well, guys, that's how you do it. That's how you fly the A320. We're going to turn on a brake fan here as we get closer, and we're going to pull off. Flight director's off and on. Landing system's off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Atlanta. Pleasure flying with you today. You guys enjoyed. Landing lights coming off. Wing lights off. Robes coming off. JRA is going to standby. Radar ND is coming off. And the weather radar can come off as well. So yeah, that's how you fly the A320, guys. Hope this has helped some of you out there who've been asking about some of these questions. By no means am I an expert on this aircraft, but I hope this has helped somebody out there. If you have any questions, of course, you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. I do recommend that you check out the V1, that's Victor 1 simulations. He is an actual Airbus A320 pilot, and he has several tutorials out there. He does live flights and stuff like that, and those might be really beneficial to you if you're wanting to become an expert in this aircraft. Oh, guys, I am going to give you guys a look at that landing here, and I'm going to be gone. So thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you guys next time up in the sky.